Hello everyone and welcome to another video. The year is 1966. For the past 3 years, Doctor Who has been capturing the imaginations of thousands of viewers across the UK. Terry Nation's Daleks have arguably helped largely of this, but so has the talented performance of William Hartnell as the titular Doctor. He's come to be seen as a crotchety but kind-hearted grandfatherly figure to a whole generation of children, but behind the scenes always not well for Hartnell or the production team. Ever since the show's original producer Verity Lambert left a year earlier, William Hartnell's relationship with her successor, John Wiles, has completely broken down. Frustrated with all of this, as well as not being able to fully realise his vision for the show, and the BBC high-ups refusing his request to write Hartnell out of it, Wiles resigns, with Innes Lloyd eventually taking his place, whilst the script editor Donald Tosh leaves with Wiles out of sympathy, and Jerry Davis replaces him. Throughout much of the show's third season, Hartnell's role in each story has slowly been diminished, with Peter Purves' Stephen taking on more of a leading man role in several stories. This has partly been due to the difficult relationship between Hartnell and John Wiles, but also because of William Hartnell's decline in health. He is starting to show signs of arteriosclerosis. He's finding it more and more difficult to learn and remember his lines. In our timeline, all of this would eventually result in Hartnell's departure from the show, with Patrick Troughton taking over as the second Doctor. The very concept of regeneration, or the Doctor being renewed as it was known then, was introduced to explain all of this. But what if all that changed? What if in an alternate timeline all of these things didn't happen at that particular point? What if William Hartnell had stayed for season 5? Now, before we get into our alternate timeline, a few things need to be said first. Firstly, the idea that William Hartnell would have been able to stay for a bit longer is incredibly unlikely. As I mentioned earlier, he was becoming really ill by the time of season 3, and I personally find it very difficult to imagine that he'd be able to stay on the show, whilst he continues to get more and more ill. Secondly, even if Hartnell had managed to stay on, I think the layout of both seasons 4 and 5 would have to be changed around a little. I don't think the Wheel in Space would have been a suitable final story for the first Doctor, for example, and that's assuming Hartnell would even be up to staying for 5 whole seasons in the first place. So here's what I'm going to go with. Let's say William Hartnell stays on until the first part of season 5, just like he did with season 4 in our timeline. I believe it's been said that Hartnell apparently wanted to do at least 5 seasons on the show, but if that means 5 full seasons, I just don't think that's really possible, given how his health was at the time. So him doing 4 full seasons and then going at the beginning of a 5th is probably more realistic and likely. Also, they probably wouldn't have changed the opening titles, as they didn't even change them until towards the end of our timeline's season 4, and that was probably at least primarily because of Patrick Troughton's casting. So with all of that out the way with, let's dive right in. Season 4 would still start off with the smugglers and the 10th planet, but now at the end of the latter, the first Doctor obviously doesn't regenerate. Next we come to the power of the Daleks, which wouldn't be drastically different apart from not having a newly regenerated Doctor, of course. And maybe the colonists would listen to the first Doctor a little sooner than they did to the second. The Highlanders would come up next, but without the same type of humour that it did in our timeline. I can't imagine Hartnell ever being in drag, for example. Then the Underwater Menace. I'm sure it'd be very interesting to see the first Doctor interact with Professor Zaroff. Why do you want to blow up the world, And then the Moonbase and the Macra Terror, neither of which would change too much, I believe. Ben and Polly would still leave in the Faceless Ones, although due to Michael Craze and Annika Wills apparently not getting on all that well with William Hartnell behind the scenes, maybe they would have left sooner. I know it's quite likely that Pauline Collins would still have turned down a chance to be a series regular, but let's suppose for a moment that she didn't in this alternate timeline. Her character of Samantha Briggs joins the first Doctor and Jamie in the TARDIS, which doesn't get lost at the end. Also, on the subject of Jamie, it'd be very interesting to see what kind of rapport he would develop with the First Doctor, and how different it would be from his relationship with the Second Doctor in our timeline. Oh, and him and Ben would take on more and more of a leading man role, just like Ian and Stephen before them. This would obviously be done to take some pressure off William Hartnell. Anyway, back to the alternate Season 4. We wouldn't have the evil of the Daleks up next, as I'm going to save that for later. Instead, I'm going to go with the unmade story The Imps as the final story of this alternate 4th season. Let's say that William Ems is able to get better just in time to finish doing the necessary rewrites for it. And then we come to the beginning of the alternate Season 5, which would have William Hartnell's final 2 stories, The Tomb of the Sidemen and The Abominable Snowmen. These would both play out more or less the same, but with the First Doctor's battle against the Great Intelligence at the end severely wounding and tiring him out. He would then regenerate into the Second Doctor, who would still be played by Patrick Troughton. The alternate Season 5 would then continue with Patrick Troughton's first story, The Evil of the Daleks, which would play out on mostly similar lines as it did in our timeline, but with a few differences. Obviously, it would have to introduce and help establish the new Doctor, as well as the concept of the Doctor changing face. And as I alluded to earlier with the alternate faceless ones, the Doctor and co wouldn't spend the beginning of the alternate evil trying to find the TARDIS, and we may have spent a bit more time on Skaro to compensate for this. And then Patrick Troughton would go on to be the Second Doctor for the rest of the alternate Season 5, as well as Seasons 6 and 7 too, probably. Maybe Victoria would still become a companion at the end of the alternate Evil of the Daleks, joining the Doctor, Jamie and Sam. To be honest, just like how I thought Peter Capaldi probably had the best idea to go after Series 10 rather than Series 11, I would say that the same was the case for William Hartnell with Season 4. If he'd have stayed on for another year, or rather another year and a bit in this particular alternate timeline I've created, it might not have been the best for his health, and it might have made the idea of introducing somebody else as a Doctor just a little bit harder, due to the audience spending even more time getting used to the First Doctor. But anyway, so there's my take on what if William Hartnell had stayed for Season 5. But what did you think? Did you like my take on it or not? And would you have done anything differently? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching, hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 894 subscribers as of the time of writing and recording this video. But if we can get to 1000 by the end of this year, then I will do my very own fan-made audio story. Also, please rate, and I shall see you all in another video. So, until next time, bye bye.